So you've got a side hustle going, maybe freelance design, virtual assistant work, weekend gigs, selling online. And the question keeps nagging at you, do I actually need an ABN for this? Most people guess. They either grab one they do not need or skip one they should have. And that second mistake has teeth, because if your side hustle is really a business and you invoice a client without quoting an ABN, that client can legally withhold 47% of your payment. Let me walk you through exactly how to get this right. Here is the number that should grab your attention. 47%. That is the no ABN withholding rate. When a business pays you and you have not quoted a valid ABN on your invoice, the ATO rules say they can hold back 47% of that payment before it ever reaches you. Imagine sending a $1,000 invoice and getting $530 back. You eventually sort it out at tax time, but in the meantime, your cash flow is gutted. This is why getting the ABN question right is not just paperwork, it is your money sitting in limbo. Step 1. Work out whether what you are doing is actually a business in the ATO's eyes or just a hobby. This is the part everyone gets wrong because they think the label they use matters. It does not. The ATO and the Australian Business Register look at the facts of how you run the activity. Are you doing it to make a profit? Is it repeated and regular? Not a one-off? Is it organised with records and invoices, run like an actual business? If you tick those boxes, you are carrying on an enterprise. Even if it is small, even if it is part-time, even if you still have a day job. Step 2. Do not guess at this. Check the actual source. Head to the Australian Business Register, that is the ABR, and find the ABN entitlement page. It lists the business indicators in plain terms: profit intention, repetition, scale of the activity, how organised you are, whether you keep records, and whether it looks similar to other businesses doing the same thing. Run your side hustle against each one honestly. By the end, you will know whether you are carrying on an enterprise or genuinely just dabbling in a hobby. That decision drives everything that follows. Step 3. If you have decided you are running an enterprise, apply for the ABN. The ABR says entitlement depends on carrying on or starting an enterprise in Australia. So if that is you, you qualify. Go through the Australian Business Register application, it is free, and choose the pathway for your entity type. For most side hustlers, that is sole trader. You enter your details and a clear description of what you do. Once you've got that ABN, you put it on every invoice. That is what stops the 47% withholding cold. Now there is a second number you need on your radar, $75,000. That is the GST registration threshold. An ABN and GST are not the same thing. Plenty of people confuse them. You can have an ABN and not be registered for GST. But the moment your turnover hits $75,000 in a financial year, the ATO says you must register for GST, and you have just 21 days to do it after crossing that line. Step 4. Keep an eye on your turnover. Add up your sales as the financial year goes along and watch that number against the $75,000 threshold. If you stay under it, GST registration is generally not required and your life stays simpler. But if you cross it, the ATO gives you 21 days to register for GST. Miss that window and you can end up having charged prices without GST, then having to find that money out of your own pocket to catch up. Tracking it as you go is far cheaper than scrambling later. Step 5. This is the habit that pays for itself. With your ABN registered, quote it on every single invoice you send to a business. Quoted ABN, you get paid normally. The full amount. No ABN, the payer can withhold 47% before it reaches you. It is that binary, so make it automatic. ABN on every invoice template, double check it is valid, and keep copies for your records. One small line of text on a document is the difference between getting your full pay and watching nearly half of it disappear. Let me cover the 2 mistakes that trip people up. The first and biggest, assuming that because it is a side hustle, it must be a hobby, so you do not need an ABN. The ATO does not see it that way. The real test is whether you are carrying on an enterprise. If your activity is repeated, organised and profit-driven, you are generally entitled to an ABN even if it is tiny or part-time. People who cling to the hobby label end up invoicing without an ABN, and that is exactly when the 47% withholding bites. The second mistake ignoring the $75,000 GST line as your hustle grows. It is easy to do. You are busy, business is good, and suddenly you have sailed past the threshold without noticing. But the ATO requires you to register within 21 days of crossing it. If you keep operating without registering, you can end up owing GST you never collected from customers, and now it has to come out of your own pocket, plus the hassle of correcting everything late. Watch that number and you avoid the whole mess. Let us run it back fast. Step 1. Decide whether you're running a business or a hobby based on the facts, not the label. Step 2. Read the ABN entitlement test on the Australian Business Register. Step 3. If you're an enterprise, apply for your ABN. It is free. Step 4. Track your turnover against the $75,000 GST threshold and register within 21 days if you cross it. And Step 5. Quote that ABN on every business invoice so you never lose 47% to withholding. That is the whole rule. If you take one thing away, let it be this. Check the entitlement test, get your ABN if you qualify, and never send a business invoice without it. That single move protects your cash flow. If this helped clear things up, hit subscribe. We make tax, and money in Australia actually makes sense. And next up, watch our guide on sole trader tax deductions you are probably missing, because once your ABN is sorted, that is where the real savings start. See you in that one.